Hello everyone! I'm delighted to welcome you to this new Odyssey tutorial. My name is Cléa Gonnet, and today we will be exploring the various bitmap tools for drawing and animating with Odyssey. There are two types of assets you can create or edit for drawing in Odyssey: 2D textures and 2D animation assets. 2D textures are primarily used for static images, while 2D animation assets are used for creating animated sequences. In this tutorial, we'll focus on working with a 2D texture. In both types of assets, there are two types of layers, raster and vector. Raster layers allow for pixel-based drawings, while vector layers are for creating scalable vector graphics. In this tutorial, we'll be focusing on raster tools. Let's start by creating a 2D texture. First, make a right-click on the empty area in the content drawer to display a pop-up menu. Go to the sub-menu Iliad and click on Texture. A window will appear asking you to enter the texture 2D settings. Here, you can specify the name, file size, color format, whether it contains alpha channels, and the background color, which can be transparent, white, or violet. Once you're done, click on Create Asset to confirm your choice. If you need to rename your texture, simply hold-click on the texture default name to modify it, then hit Enter on your keyboard to confirm your choice. First, let's take a look at the top bar. Top bar gives quick access to common actions. It is split into two parts: actions to be used anytime without context, like save or undo, actions which depend on the context of use. For instance, raster layers and vector layers will provide different features. First, the diskette icon. If you click on it, it will save your current file. These arrows will undo/redo your actions. Shortcuts are Ctrl-Z and Ctrl-Y on Windows. Replace Ctrl by Command on Mac. The trash bin clears everything in the current layer of your frame, but it keeps the layer in the layer stack. The rest of the top bar will depend on the selected tools. Now let's take an overview of the drawing tools available in Odyssey. Select the paintbrush to draw strokes on the canvas. Select the eraser to erase parts of your drawing. Use the selection tool to select an area from the canvas. This area can be combined with the transform tool to move, scale, and rotate it. Use the shapes tool to draw basic shapes like circles, rectangles, and lines. Use the paint buckets to fill areas with a solid color. And finally, use the eyedropper to pick a color from the canvas. Let's take a look at the color wheel and color sliders. The color wheel displays a chromatic circle where you can choose a color. First, select the hue within the outer circle, then adjust its intensity with the inner circle. At the bottom right of this panel, there is a space to enter hex code, allowing you to find a specific color directly with this information. In the color sliders panel, you have multiple types of color space options. By default, you can choose between RGB, HSV, or lab. To display more options, simply click on the small arrow to the right of sliders and check or uncheck other color space such as HSL or CMYK. Let's look at the layer stack and how to add layers and adjust their parameters. A layer stack in digital illustration is a hierarchical arrangement of layers. It can include background, foreground, and detail layers, and is used to organize and manipulate different elements of your artwork. These structures enable you to work on individual components separately and non-destructively, allowing for precise control and creative flexibility. Onto the layer properties, you will see the little checkboard's square icon is the alpha masks. It blocks the transparency levels in your layer. When enabled, you can draw the opaque pixels and leave the transparent pixels as they are. The eye icon lets you show or hide the layer. The lock icon allows you to lock or unlock the layer. Once locked, you cannot edit your layer. You can change the opacity of a layer by clicking and entering a value, or using the slider. Blending modes alters the way colors, tones, and pixels from one layer interact with those of layers beneath, resulting in various visual effects. To add a layer, click on the Add Layer button, and choose either Raster Image Layer or Vector Image Layer to add a layer. Keep in mind, the more layers you add, the more calculation the machine has to perform. Next, we're going to create a folder. To create a new folder, click on the Add Folder button. You can then drag and drop layers inside. If you want to make a multiple selection, use Shift to select contiguous layers, Ctrl to select non-contiguous layers, and Ctrl+A to select all layers. Note that Ctrl+A will only work if the layer stack is selected. You can right-click on a layer to display various options. Select all layers from the stack. Duplicate selected layers. Delete the selected layers. Rename the current layer. You can also double-click to rename a layer. Cut the selected layers. Copy the selected layers. Paste layers that were copied or cut. Merge selected layers that have the same type, raster or vector. You cannot merge layers with two different types. Flatten selected folders. Note that flattening folders only work with raster layers inside. Vector layers will be ignored. You can also drag and drop layers from the one texture 2D to another. Let's take a look at the pen brush. Its shortcut is B. The pen brush tools combines options set in Tool Options panel and the brush selected in the Brush Selector panel. The Brush Selector panel allows you to choose an Odyssey brush among 77 default assets. Odyssey brushes are powerful drawing tools based on Blueprint, a visual and nodal scripting language that comes from Unreal Engine. Thanks to Odyssey brushes, you can easily emulate traditional media, painting, brushes, pencil, etc., and create tools to answer specific needs in Odyssey: texturing, editing, normal maps, etc. We will see in another tutorial how to create a brush. However, there are two interesting options to be found here. First is the size, which gives the diameter to the strokes in pixels. Second is the flow, which gives the max value to the flow of the stamps that makes the Odyssey brush. Note that some of the default brushes cannot use size or flow. The reason will be covered in the tutorial about making a brush. Now, let's take a look to the panel tool options. In Shape, selected shape, the drop-down menu will allow you to select a drawing shape: freehand, line, rectangle, polygon, ellipse, and bezier. The shape is then associated with the chosen Odyssey brush. The option Uniform will be used with the following shapes: line, to draw lines at 0 or 90 degrees. Rectangle, to draw squares. Polygon, to draw polygon shapes with lines at 0 or 90 degrees. With the shape polygon, use Enter to confirm the shape. Ellipse, to draw circles. Under Smoothing, let's have a look at the settings. You have several methods. The average method will calculate the average of your steps to smooth the line. Pull will make your edges sharper. Strength, the higher, the stronger the method used. You can see it in the demonstration. Real time. It will smooth the stroke in real time if enabled. If disabled, the smooth is applied when you drop your stylus. If you use the catch-up method, it will catch up the cursor as long as the stylus mouse left button is down. Under Interpolation. First, we have Step. Brushes are made of stems and a stroke is a continuous line of stems. Step is the distance between two stems. Step should not be modified on certain brushes, such as pen brush by default. The Adaptive Step option. If the option is checked, the step value will be in percentage. Your brush step will be calculated that way. So if your brush is 50 pixels and your step is 10%, the gap between two steps will be 5 pixels. If it's unticked, the step will keep the same value in pixels. Under Interpolation tab, you have a drop-down menu. It calculates the best way to display a stroke, based on information sent by your mouse and graphic tablets. Next options are blending modes. Eraser mode keeps all of the specification of your current used brush and applies it as an eraser. This mode is really useful when you paint with specific brushes and want to erase with the very aspect of the brush. The eraser can also be found in the top bar with this icon. Blending mode is used to blend pixels on the canvas with pixels applied with your Odyssey brush. Alpha mode affects the alpha channel of your brush, which means the opacity, transparency of the stamp used in your brush, and gives it a specific property. Opacity is the global transparency limit within the same stroke. Opacity shall not be confused with flow, which can be found in the brush selector and in the top bar. With a low opacity, if you paint with the same stroke at the same place, the line will not be more opaque. With a low flow, you can see the result will be different. Next tool is the eraser. Its shortcut is E. It allows you to erase a stroke with a smooth eraser. The options are the same as the paintbrush. Now, let's explore the selection tool in Odyssey and how to use it effectively. In the Tool Options panel, under Shape, you can choose in the selected shape freehand, rectangle, polygon, ellipse, and Bezier. You also have the smoothing options as in the paintbrush tool. With the selection tool, you can select specific areas of your artwork. Once an area is selected, you can copy and paste it into a new layer using the shortcut Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V. If you want to deselect an area, simply press Ctrl+D. Additionally, when you have an active selection, you can draw inside it. This is useful for adding details or making adjustments within a specific part of your artwork. Next, let's explore the Transform tool and how to use it to manipulate your selections. To use the Transform tool, you first need to select a part of your drawing with the Selection tool. Once you have your selection, switch to the Transform tool. The shortcut to the Transform tool is Ctrl+T. Activating the Transform tool creates a specific HUD. The red squares can be used to resize the selection. To rotate the shape, place the cursor outside of the selected zone and drag. You can also move the pivot point in the center to change the axis of rotation. To confirm your action, press Enter. If you want to cancel, press Escape. Additionally, we have the Perspective option. When this option is checked, you can distort the selection to simulate perspective drawing. Lastly, we have the Uniform option, which allows you to deform the entire selection uniformly. Now let's explore the Primitive Drawing tool, a versatile tool for creating basic shapes. The shortcut for this tool is U. By default, Primitive Shape is used in freehand. With that, you can draw fill shapes, as with a paintbrush or a lasso, and draw your shapes directly into your canvas already filled. It's really easy to do some backgrounds or even do some animation for effects. Just like with the paintbrush tool, you can use the smoothing option to create smoother strokes. In the tool options, you have several choices for the shape you want to draw. You can select from line, rectangle, polygon, ellipse, and Bezier in the drop-down menu. In the parameter sections, you can set the width of the stroke. Additionally, you have the anti-highlight and subpixel options. These options enhance the rendering of your stroke. The anti-highlight options smooth the edges of your shape, making them look less jagged. The accuracy of a tablet is far superior to that of our screens, so it's important to take advantage of this and transmit the pen position and formation correctly. Working in subpixel mode allows you to go beyond the screen definition when drawing, resulting in more precise and detailed artwork. The Fill option allows you to fill your shape with a color chosen in the Color Modifier panel. The blending options work exactly like those in the paintbrush tool, allowing you to blend your strokes seamlessly. You can toggle the Uniform option by pressing Shift. This transforms rectangles into squares, ellipses into circles, and ensure that lines and polygons are drawn at 0 degrees and 90 degrees angles. Now, let's take a closer look at the Paint Bucket tools and its options. The shortcut from the Paint Bucket tool is G. This tool will apply a color chosen from the color wheel or color selector within a shape, or the entire layer if it's empty. If the alpha channel of the layer is locked, the Raster Pen Bucket tool will be sensitive. In the Source drop-down menu, you can select from the following options. Current layer, fill only depending on the content of the current layer. Foreground layer, fill only depending on the content of the layers above the current one. Background layer, fill only depending on the content of the layer under the current one. All layers, fill taking into account everything visible on the canvas. Next, let's take a look at the tolerance settings. The color tolerance source allows you to select the type of tolerance to be used as a limit for the pen bucket. Color tolerance determines how much subtlety the tool tolerates in terms of opacity, color, or luminosity based on your chosen color tolerance source. For instance, if you're using a transparency mode, changing the color tolerance value will expand the filling area. The expansion setting allows you to expand the fluid fill beyond the limits defined by the tolerance settings. Gap tolerance lets you ignore gaps in the shape. This is particularly useful when you have small gaps in your line art that you don't want to affect the fill. The Include Colors option is particularly requested in the Japanese animation industry. It allows the artist to include the color of the line when using the Pen Bucket tool. This feature works exclusively with aliased lines and requires a predefined list of solid colors. The blending options for the Pen Bucket tool work exactly like those in the Pen Brush tool, allowing for seamless blending of colors. That wraps up our tutorial. I hope this helps you get the most out of your drawing experience. If you have any questions or need further assistance, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials.